Hello. Welcome, everyone. Happy Friday. We're going to get started with our weekly Career Accelerator Q&A. Just going to make sure we're live across our platforms right now. I see us going live over on Instagram as well. Let me just check over on LinkedIn. All right, we'll do a quick check here. Make sure everything is up and going. I hope you're all having a good Friday and a good week so far. If this is your first time joining, really glad to have you here. We're going to jump in a second, just make sure that everything is ready to rock and roll. And hello to everyone joining us over on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube for our weekly Career Accelerator Q&A. This is your time with me to get your questions answered and really support you in where you're at in your career and make sure that we are unlocking higher levels of growth for you in the process. So really glad to have you guys here. Please get your questions ready. We could jump right in. I'm just making sure that we are set up across my different platforms. I'll do a quick spot check here just to make sure. All right. All right, perfect. Let's see. I think we are in action right now. Okay, great. All right, so we are live. Wonderful. Well, hello, everyone. And again, welcome to our weekly Career Accelerator. It's so good to have you guys here. If it's your first time joining, welcome. My name is Tiffany Human. I'm a CEO and career coach, and we love supporting you in your career to unlock higher levels of growth and impact through practical guidance and lived experience to support you best in that. So we love doing this together and making sure that you have your questions answered. There's no guesswork. We know there's a lot of information out there, and I want to just be able to debunk those myths and misconceptions and get you on your way to set you up for the most success. So if that sounds good to you, you're definitely in the right place. And we will start taking some questions. We got some good ones ahead of time as well. But I do want to make sure we're tackling any questions coming your way. If you're joining us on LinkedIn or YouTube or Instagram, thank you for being here. Again, you're more than welcome to join the platform that suits you best and where you feel most comfortable asking your questions with us. So don't hesitate, and I'll be kind of checking the chat and making sure that we're taking all the questions coming through. We have, I think, one question that actually already came through from Instagram. One question was from Kazi. What makes you happy in the office? So I don't know if that's a question necessarily for me or just how to know what makes you happy in an office environment, but I'll maybe take it in that perspective of, how to be happy in the office. This is going to look different for everybody, but it's going to come back to what matters most to you, honestly, and what motivates you, what drives you, what energizes you. A lot of what comes out from being in an office environment is the people piece, right? You are with your teams. You are able to talk to people really easily. You're able to feel this level of connectivity. I was actually just talking to one of my clients earlier today about this, who's transitioning from more of a hybrid role into a full-time in-office position. And we were talking about the pros of that, right? The fact that especially in a new role or new position, being in an office environment helps you build those relationships so much faster and a lot more seamlessly. And you can really do it right out of the gate instead of navigating some of a remote work that can be a little bit more challenging in that regard. Other key benefits that can help you feel happy in the office is just the visibility that you get, right? Instead of just focusing on doing the work and letting that speak for itself, you're in a better spot to have that be visible, not just with your team and your boss, but even some of your senior leaders who are often really important decision makers in the growth that you're going to have in that company and how you progress. I think ultimately also, Kazi, what it comes down to is what makes you happy? What are the values that you really deem most important for you? Is it feeling challenged? Is it feeling recognized? Is it having a sense of purpose in your work? Is it being amongst a really motivating team? Is it having an inspiring manager? Again, it's going to look different for everyone, but I do really encourage you to think about what that could be for you and really lean into that so that you're set up for a lot of success and happiness and ultimately fulfillment, right? I think another key piece when it comes to making you happy in the office is just also thinking beyond the work. Okay. So, what I mean by that is yes, we're hired to do a job, but there's so much more to it than just the work itself. And so, when you are feeding into a bigger vision for yourself, for the company, where you are really building an amazing network of advocates and allies for you, where you're maybe getting to be part of projects that are really motivating, that is something that just goes beyond like the day to day work that can make you really happy, also. So let me know if you want to share any more context, because I know that was kind of a broader question, but always happy to share any more insights. Okay, great question there. Thanks for starting off with that one. We also have another question here from Braden Baker over from Instagram. I have a third and possible final interview today. Congratulations. I'm glad you're able to join us. It's very timely. They always ask me why this brand. Funny thing is, a recruiter reached out to me and I never know what to say. Okay, I get that. And maybe just as a quick side note, Braden, and for anyone else who's going through interviews right now, you have to get your hands on my Nail Your Interview training. It's really practical and has helped thousands of professionals land their offers with ease and confidence. So just comment interview over on Instagram, and I will send you the link for that training. And if you're over on my LinkedIn, you actually can access that right in my featured section of my profile. You just scroll down and you'll see the link to my Nail Your Interview training. So either which way where you're following us from, and if you're over on YouTube, just head over to my LinkedIn page, Tiffany Human, and you can grab it there. But if you're on Instagram, just comment interview and I'll share it with you. Okay, so for this question of why this brand, obviously you don't want it to just be a very blasé answer, especially if the recruiter reached out to you and you're like, well, I didn't really choose this brand. You are the ones that chose me by reaching out, right? But you need to have an answer, right? If you're seeing an interview through and it's a role that you're actually genuinely pretty interested in, you should have a pretty clear answer as to why you want to work for them. What is it about what they do that's drawing you to this particular company? And this is a really good opportunity, Braden, to go beyond the role, right? So you've probably been talking about the role up to now, but I would actually answer this much more with regards to their vision or their mission or what they stand for, what they're maybe leading in terms of the peers in their space, and come up with a narrative around that. So, as a quick example, it could be something like, thanks so much for that question. I was really drawn to this brand specifically because of the work that you're doing and how that plays back into the community. For me, that's something that's really important, even my personal life, to be really involved in community and giving back. And I love that that is a core philanthropic focus of this brand. So to not only be able to contribute from a professional standpoint in my role coming into this position, but to also be able to contribute in a meaningful way to our community and those that we serve is something that really hits home for me. And I can't wait to be a part of that. Right. So that's just like a really top level example, Braden, that you can use as inspiration to answer that and to give a really like fun, meaningful, and heartwarming answer instead of just like, well, you reached out to me, so that's why I'm here. You see the difference? So just make sure you got that narrative ready. It's going to help you a lot, but wishing you all the most success in bringing that offer home. And of course, for anyone here who is looking for even more support in your role and really unlocking higher levels of growth and impact, you could absolutely book a free call with me and my team. If you're on Instagram, you could just comment call and we can set that up, because it sounds like a pretty pivotal moment for you, Braden, in your career. And we just want to make sure that you're constantly set up for that accelerated success. Okay. All right. Great questions so far, guys. I'm going to take a couple here that are coming through from LinkedIn as well. And then we have a few more over on Instagram. And if we have a chance to take ones that I got ahead of time, I will definitely bring those in as well. So we have one question here. I'm going to pull it up from Vishal. Thanks so much for joining us, Vishal. Your question is, what's the best way to work as a team? This is such a good one. I was just helping one of my clients through this as she's a first-time people manager in an organization that's a little bit less structured than what she was used to before. So a lot of those questions around working as a team, but also managing a team. I'm going to take your question more from the lens around the best way to work as a team. So a few key things. The first is you want to have a really good understanding of who does what. That's like the baseline. Okay. If you want to work as effectively together as a team, you don't want to overstep each other. You want to complement each other. And by being able to complement each other, you have to know who does what and how your work ties into the others and vice versa. So that level of clarity is baseline for me. The second piece is also identifying how you can support each other in your respective roles. So, how are you working together? When should you be working together? When are you working more, isolated or in your own particular lanes? And how does that also play into your team's vision, your team's objectives as it's led by your manager, right? That's a key thing that you would want to do. A third key thing I should say in working really well together as a team is likely having some team gatherings. That could be team statuses. That could be done once a week, once every 2 weeks, where you're not just working on your own stuff, you're actually intentionally coming together to assess where you're at, how you can learn from each other, what are best practices that you can apply in your work based off something that a team member is doing, and vice versa. And I highly encourage doing that because you're going to feel really connected, not just with your work, but also the bigger picture of what your team's working towards. I would say another key thing is also knowing what really motivates each other because every team member is different. Probably for you, Vishal, there's things that motivate you, and there's different things that motivate your colleagues. And so you probably want to get a sense of what does really energize them in their work. Maybe for you, it's like collaboration and being able to be very open and transparent with each other. Maybe for another team member, it's more like the nature of the work or feeling really purposeful in their work. And so when you get a sense of how they're being motivated and what drives that, you can actually work with them even more effectively. Because when you talk with them, when you're working on projects, when you're driving results forward, you actually know what to play into in your conversations that will get their attention best because you know that that's what drives them versus what doesn't drive them. So these are definitely some thought starters, Vishal, that I would say. I think maybe the last piece in what's the best way to work together as a team is make sure the accountability is really clear. Okay, I know there's some very, very frustrating when you're working with teams and you feel like things are just falling back on your plate or you're constantly chasing after people to get things done. So it ties back to the first point I mentioned around role and responsibilities of who does what. That goes hand in hand with the accountability of not only are they doing that, but they're accountable to it and you can count on them and you can rely on them and vice versa. So those are definitely some cues I would tap into and keep very much top of mind. I hope that helps for you, Vishal. Let me know if you have any follow-ups on that. Okay, amazing. Wonderful. Let's keep it going. I have another question here from Maya over from Instagram. What's the best way for young people to make early career decisions? And at what age should young people begin thinking about this? Oh, yeah, I hear you on that. Right. When you're kind of at a younger phase in your career, it can be a little bit confusing of having all the answers. And you don't have to have all the answers, but I encourage you to think about it as per this question, right? And so when you're thinking about early career decisions, what's really key is identifying not what you need to do for your entire career, but what feeds your most pressing values and priorities for at least the next few years. And making sure that every role that you step into actually serves as a springboard into the next level of growth that you want. So that's kind of a good way of thinking about it, Maya, of where I'm going. Does that actually help me not just like immediately, but also if I want to kind of be in this direction in 2 years from now, is this the path I should take? Or is there another route? And a key tactical thing that's going to help you with this, Maya, is speak to people. This is a huge focus with the way that we support our clients in getting clarity in their career growth decisions and making sure that they feel really confident in that, is speaking with people who are in the paths that they're considering. So the beauty of this, Maya, is that you don't have to jump into a role and then do the trial and error route. You can do that. It's pretty timely, though. I would much rather that you speak to people who are in a possible path that you're exploring, get insight about what it's like. What do they appreciate about it? What would you see as relevant for you? What's the company like? All these different insights where you now start building your own business case to inform your own career decisions, especially when you're early on in your career because you don't know, right? Like you haven't experienced that much yet. You might have a hunch. You might feel like that is a good direction for me, but you won't really know until you do it. And so being able to speak with people and enough people, by the way, don't just talk to one person and make your judgment call off of that. You're going to want to have several conversations and see what patterns are you recognizing? What are common themes that are coming up in those conversations? And then tie that back to you and your own reflections. So, for example, Maya, if you're possibly considering a path in marketing, but you're like, I don't know if I want brand marketing, digital marketing, product marketing, I'm like all over the place, but I studied marketing. So I feel like I want something in that realm. Talk to people in those different subsects of marketing functions, learn from them. And LinkedIn's a great platform for that, where you can reach out to them. Always start with a message that drives from them and something that you appreciate about them specifically. So it could be something as simple as, hey, Trisha, I noticed that you've been working at X company in Y role. That is amazing. Congratulations on everything you've achieved so far. I'm also looking to move in that direction, and I'd love to learn more about your experience, right? So it's not all about you. You're actually drawing on what it is about them that resonates with you, and that's going to open up those conversations a lot more seamlessly. Okay, so that's probably the best way to go about it. So you don't have to feel alone in that. You get more clarity, you inform your decision making, and the best kind of side effect of this is that you also can build advocates at the same time, because these connections could possibly serve as referrals for you or recommendations for you to get you into those organizations. So it's really a win-win all the way around. Hopefully that helps you kind of think of it a little bit differently. Let me know. But I'd say that's especially important at that early phase of your career, but honestly, really at every phase, every phase. Uh, Relationship building, having the right support system in your corner is one of the biggest strategies we coach our clients on that unlocks higher levels of growth and impact in their careers and helps them really step into their fullest potential. So there's a lot of power in that. Okay. Amazing. Let's come back over on LinkedIn. I see a question here from Sylvie. Hey, Sylvie, great to have you here. Your question, I'm going to pull it up. What's the best way to penetrate a clique to achieve seamless communication despite the struggles in this scenario? Okay, so what's the best way to break through a clique when new to a team? Yeah, so if you're joining a new team and you're getting a sense that there's sort of this camaraderie that's already established before you even joined, one of the best ways, and this is exactly what's worked with quite a few of our clients who have been in a similar situation, Sylvie, is start with building one-on-one relationships. It's very hard to break through in a clique if you're doing it in a group forum, because they're going to feel very united and it'll almost feel like it's like all of them against you. Whereas if you start building more one-on-one relationships with each member of this group, you have a better opportunity to establish a connection, commonalities, better rapport, right? And it's also less intimidating for you because you're doing this at a one-on-one level versus in a group setting. And so that way, as you're building these relationships one by one by one, now the feeling of breaking through a clique doesn't even feel like you're breaking through, because you've now established your own one relationships with all of them. You found your own common ground with them in your own way. And that's going to actually lessen the feeling of this clique where it feels like you're an outsider. So that's something I highly recommend doing, and really try to emphasize, Sylvie, finding those commonalities, those themes where you can support them or connect with them, or maybe similar interests that you have, because that's going to break down their walls and allow them to see you as a great support and ally to them, as opposed to just like someone new coming onto the team. I think at the same time, your manager also plays a role in creating an inclusive environment. So if you feel like you are kind of on the outside, your manager also plays a role of creating a space where you are welcomed, where you are integrated into the team, where there's conscious effort being made. So you can have a conversation with your manager about that while also taking those initiatives on your end to have those one-on-one conversations. Okay. But I highly recommend that. We actually just did an amazing workshop on nailing your first 90 days in a new role. And we talk about that very much there around, how to go about that, how to build those relationships early on, how to respect the team members who have already been there, but actually in a way where you're like curious to learn from them, or you respect where they're coming from to build more immediate trust and rapport, as opposed to it feeling like a hassle or that there's this weird awkwardness between you guys. Okay. Let me know, Sylvie, if that gives you a good direction to go off of, but I would highly recommend playing into that. Yeah, we're getting some great questions today, by the way, guys. Keep them coming. Again, if you're joining and just joining through right now, welcome. My name is Tiffany. We host our weekly Career Accelerator Q&A every Friday over here. Next Friday, we won't be available that week, but we will be back the following week. So I'll remind you guys of that towards the end as well. But all that to say, we want to just take your questions to make sure that we're supporting you in your career growth, making sure you're unlocking higher levels of impact and growth for yourself, and providing a lot of practical guidance and lived experience so that you know exactly how to implement this in your workplace. Okay. So we have another question here from R. Strickland. How can I ask for a raise in a nice way? It's been almost 3 years. I've been with the company almost 6. Oh, yeah, it's time. It is definitely time. So I don't know when your last raise was. You've been with your company for 6 years. You've been and you're saying I can ask for a raise in a nice way. It's been almost 3 years. So I imagine you're saying it's been 3 years since you got a raise. That's a long time. I imagine for you, R. Strickland, that your role has evolved a lot in the last 3 years. Never mind 3 years, probably in the last 6 months or a year. And so your compensation should be adjusted, reflecting that as well, especially if you've been taking on new responsibilities, more responsibilities, elevating yourself in your role. So that's really what you're going to want to lean into as you're bringing forward that raise. It's a good timing of the year as well. I would say, even having started it a little sooner. That's why this moment of the year is so important, because you don't want to wait too long to have these conversations, since raises and promotions are already being discussed and determined for employees. But that aside, I would highly recommend that you set up a meeting with your boss, and you're going to run it like this. Okay. So you're going to say something like, thanks so much for meeting with me today. I wanted to address my compensation and what that would look like moving forward. I know I've been in my role for almost 3 years now. And in that time, I have really evolved dramatically in key facets such as XYZ that have had notable impacts on the business. And then that's where you're going to share some of your biggest achievements just from this past year alone, and try to make that as quantifiable as possible to show that you've really brought a concrete impact on the business. From there, you're going to lead into the fact that you haven't necessarily found that your compensation has adjusted in reflection of that. And then this is an important part. You're going to want to have done some of your research ahead of time before having this conversation around industry benchmarks. If you don't have internal salary data for your role or band of role, you're going to want industry benchmarks outside of your company for your role. And that's where you're going to layer that in and say that you've also taken some liberties to do some external research in terms of industry benchmarks based off your role and level of seniority, pairing that also with your specific track record that you just outlined. And you do believe that there is a gap of X number or X percent that you'd like to close. Okay, so maybe you're going to say a gap of, roughly $20,000 or about 20% or 30%, and you'd like to work on closing that as soon as possible. And then that's where you're going to push it back to your boss and say, can you support me in moving in that direction? Or what is your guidance in helping to make that happen sooner than later? Or what would you need to further see from me or demonstrate to solidify that increase before the end of the year or by early next quarter, or however we want to frame it with a very specific timeline? And then you're going to put it out there. So essentially, what you've just done is you've built your business case. You've built your business case to show why you're even bringing this up and why it's a pretty legit reason to bring it up. And you're also asking for your boss's support. Because what's most important for you, for R. Strickland, who asked this question over on Instagram, is you want to make sure that, one, your boss is on the same page with you, that they agree that you should have a raise and it's just a question of when, versus if they don't agree and then it's like, well, why don't they agree? What do they feel is missing? What is happening here? And if you get met with feedbacks like, well, budgets are really tight, or we haven't been giving out as many raises this year, or we've had to make some cuts, you want to lead up with empathy, acknowledge that. You don't want to be dismissive. So you could say, I completely get that. I appreciate where you're coming from. And I understand that there's been some, financial shifts in the company this year. But then you're going to shift into why you should still be viewed a bit exceptionally from that, right? You could say, at the same time, everything that I'm sharing with regards to my ask for an increase in my salary is actually based off of everything I've demonstrated well beyond the past year. And so, since that has never really been addressed, I'd like us to find a solution now that we can work towards and get the support on to make happen. Right? So you're always going to just try to bring that back and get as firm into that as possible. If you are looking for more support on that, I'm more than happy to guide you. I can tell you that's one of the key areas that we also support our clients in, and always going for the higher end of their salary raises. We've had some great ones come through just in the last couple of weeks alone. So you just kind of need to know the right communication, how to play those relationships, how to build your business case really well so that it makes it like a no-brainer decision. Right? And something that you can feel really confident in delivering when it comes to negotiation strategy. So if you want, feel free to book a call with me and my team. We'd love to chat with you. You could just comment call over on Instagram, and I'll send you the link to book that in, and we can chat more on making that happen for you. Yeah. All right. Let me just scroll down here, see if we've gotten any other questions. There's some pretty good ones coming through. I'm just going to scroll down and make sure I didn't miss any. Thank you guys for being so active and sharing your questions here today. We always want to make sure that you have everything answered and are walking away with clarity and practical strategies to put this into action. Okay. I love this next question from Vishal over on LinkedIn. I'm going to pull it back up again. So this one is, how can we prove our potential in a new organization? Dum, dum, dum. Yeah, the question of the hour, right? So a lot of this actually comes down to how you're going to build up your visibility and your abilities in your role vis-a-vis not just your manager, but also your senior leaders. Okay. Because you're coming into a role, obviously, for a certain mandate that you've been given, but you don't always want to just take that at face value. And so the more that you can get a sense of what really matters to the company right now, where are their biggest priorities, what are their key focuses for the next year or next 6 months or whatever it is, and tie that back to your role. This is where you're going to find, Vishal, opportunities to unlock more potential for yourself. Okay. So you're going to see, okay, well, this is what I'm expected to do in my role. But now that I know all these insights about what's really mattering to the company and the bigger vision and bigger picture here, how can I actually extend that and give myself more exposure and visibility in those areas? How can I elevate myself in the work that I'm expected to do that will actually showcase what I'm capable of? Right. And so there's a lot of key ways you can do that. One could be being a really good ally to your boss, anticipating needs really well of the team and getting ahead of things where you don't have to be asked everything, but you're just like a problem solver and you're going after it and being a really good resource in delivering those results. Another key thing in proving your potential is don't just focus on the work when it comes to proving your potential. Take time to build relationships, because just focusing on doing your work really well as a way of building your potential or proving your potential can actually backfire when people don't know who you are or the type of impact you're creating. So please don't underestimate the importance of building those relationships early on in your company around what you're doing, the excitement you have towards the work that you're taking on, and how you also look forward to supporting them in their own respective functions or departments, right? That's going to help them get to know you really well and realize, oh, wow, like Vishal's like not just a great guy, but he's really supporting and able to kind of take those next steps in his role and is very communicative with us, et cetera, right? So that's another great way to prove your potential, by having others know who you are and see quite frankly what you're capable of. I think another way is also just trying to find the wow factors in the work that you do, right? So you might get a certain expectation or mandate of what you're expected to deliver on, but always kind of ask yourself, how can I make this like uniquely me? How can I make this in a way that's really memorable or extra impactful? Or how can I tap into my own strengths to make this even better than what it was before I took it on? Right? And so when you're doing that for every type of key project that you're leading, that's also going to prove your potential, because you're kind of getting it to you on one level, but the way that you deliver it ends up being at this level. So that's potential, because it shows, hey, I did the ask, but I also made it a lot better than what was initially asked. And that's going to create a really good not just rapport and reputation, but also play directly into your personal brand of what you become known for in the company. So all good things. I could go a lot deeper on that, Vishal, but those are definitely some insights that are coming to mind to prove your potential in your new company. And congrats if you are entering into a new company. I would love to chat with you more and see how we can support you in those next steps. So please feel free to DM me directly on LinkedIn if you want to chat or book a call, and we can talk more about that as well. Okay, fantastic. Let me just scroll back over here and see if there's any other questions. We have one follow up from Kazi over on Instagram. Toxic environment is killing me day by day. I couldn't sleep for months. I'm tired of this corporate world. I found it fake. All right, I'm going to just say one thing that I think a lot of people need to hear, and I'm so sorry that you've been dealing with that. Not all companies are like that. Okay. Obviously, that does not excuse this company that you've been with if you find that there's been a lot of toxicity. But I can tell you, having supported over 1,100 clients across different companies, different functions, and different industries, there is a lot of good out there, okay? It's just you have to find the right ones. You have to find the right ones that value you, that appreciate you, where you can really thrive and be your best self and also know how to navigate that really well. So, I know it's so tough when you've gone through that little bit of toxicity or a lot of toxicity and it's questioning your confidence, it's impacting your work life balance. You feel like you're not being your best self, and I get that. And that's probably just not the right work environment for you. And that's okay. You're allowed to make a change. You're allowed to move on to a different environment. And I would actually encourage you, Kazi, to look at this in a way of what do you want more of? What is really important for you? What would make you genuinely happy? And then also cross reference that with what do you not want? What do you want to avoid? What do you never want to experience again? And use that as your mapping for future opportunities that you might be exploring. Because so often, and I've seen this with our clients plenty of times, where they're so focused on the toxicity element of their past experience that it almost clouds their judgment and it's just all negative. Whereas there's likely good things that have come from this previous role or current role that you're in, but that negativity is just weighing over you like a dark cloud. So it does take a little bit of compartmentalization to peel back those layers and say, okay, if I wasn't dealing with this type of crap, quite frankly, what are some of the things that I've actually gained from being here that can serve me well, that can position me best for my next step, whatever that looks like? And you really want to reflect on that because you're going to need that when you do go into interviews and you do go into networking conversations for your next role. You're not going to come in it bashing your previous company because that will be a surefire way to not get the next role. But you want to come at it from a place of what you've learned, what you've gained, what skills you're bringing into this new company, despite that previous organization just not being the ideal fit for you, right? And that's totally your right. But I would encourage you, to not rule out corporate altogether because there's a lot of good. There's a lot of good. I see it with our clients every day who are thriving in their organizations and love the work that they do. And that is 100% a possibility. But we don't want you to get stuck up in, a toxic environment that's not serving you well or making you feel like you can't live up to your full potential because you absolutely deserve to be able to do that. Okay. For what it's worth, for anyone that's been dealing with this, I have an amazing digital course called Toxic Boss Bootcamp. It's highly practical and has been really, really helpful in knowing how to handle these situations really effectively in a toxic workplace with scripts and templates and role play examples, but also how to take control back of your career. And we have a savings on that right now. So if you are interested, please feel free to DM me. I'm more than happy to share those details with you so that you can get the $50 savings that we have on that right now. Okay, good questions. Let's keep it going. Let me see if I missed anything here. We're having such a nice global audience joining us. Thank you guys. Seeing everyone popping in from a little all over the place. Maybe as we're kind of wrapping up, let me know in your chat, whether on Instagram, YouTube, or LinkedIn, what's a key challenge you're facing right now. Like if there's one thing that is really top of mind that you're like, oh gosh, I just wish I knew how to do that. Please let me know. We got some good questions ahead of time too around, speaking with executives or handling some difficult work challenges. And I'm more than happy to dive into that as well. I just want to make sure I'm giving you guys the space, since you're here live with me, to get some of your burning questions answered and make sure if there's something that is really top of mind for you right now that we can help you with that, right? I'll just come back to one of the questions I got ahead of time around how to speak to executives effectively. And there's a few key things you want to keep in mind. The first one, probably one of the most important, is less is more. I had to learn that the hard way. Less is more. Your executives, for the most part, are very sharp. They think 10 steps ahead. They don't want to be met with every single detail under the sun. You also don't want to give them too many details because they will latch onto that and then start derailing you from what you need to tell them, what your key messages are. So I really encourage you, when you're thinking of presenting to your executives, whether it's a project update, an approval, whatever that looks like, always think about what are your key messages that will most impact the outcome that you need from that conversation or meeting. Okay, so you want to start with the end in mind. What is it that I actually need from them? And then work backwards on, okay, based off of that, what's the information I need to share most simply and straightforward to get me to that outcome? Rather than just saying, okay, I have this project I'm working on. I'm going to share this and this and this and this and this, and then I'm going to lead to asking them for an approval. That runs the risk of you sharing far too much information, diluting your messages, and not even getting the buy-in that you need. Okay, so that's really important. I think another key piece of speaking effectively with your executives is read the room. As much as possible, you want to get a sense of what are the hot topics for them before even speaking with them. This is something I used to do very much, and we coach our clients on doing as well, is actually speaking with other departments who have met with your senior leaders prior to you. So when I was at L'Oreal and we'd have meetings with our CEO, and these were monthly meetings that would take place across our different divisions, I would actually speak to my colleagues and friends in another department in their division and say, hey, look, I'm meeting with our CEO next week. I know you just met with him. What were some of like the questions he was asking? What do you feel was like really top of mind? And that would give me insights as to, oh, okay, so that seems like it's pretty top of mind for him. I want to at least be prepared to address that should that come up in our conversation. Or maybe I should actually integrate that in my flow since that's very top of mind for him right now. So those are just like some really easy but proactive ways that you can get ahead of the curve in speaking to your executives and doing that very effectively. The last pro tip I want to share on that one is pre-vet your communication and messages before even speaking to those key executives. Okay? So what I mean by that is, yes, you can use your manager for this, but you would probably want to vet some of your messages with other leaders in the company, in your department, as an example, who have some key insight and feedback they can share. That way, you can integrate that into your message so that when you actually do present it for that official time with your executive leaders, you've already factored in a lot of those insights and you've gotten the support from those other leaders as well, especially if they're present in that meeting also, right? So you're not just going at this from your own view. You've actually done your due diligence. You've presented your case, you've vetted that case, and now when you present it, it's less is more. It's focused. You're reading the room and you're focused on those hot topics. And you've also pre-vetted it so that as it's delivered, you feel really confident in what you're sharing because you've already integrated some key feedback from those that you've spoken with. So I can go again a lot further on that, but those were just some key insights I wanted to share from the question that was shared ahead of time from Amanda. Okay, so thanks, Amanda, for sending that question in our community via email. I really appreciate it. All right, guys, any other questions that you have? I'm going to just scroll back here and make sure I didn't miss anything from our LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram community. But really great questions today, guys. All right. Things are looking good over here. Any key challenges you guys are facing? Anything that you want some last guidance on before we wrap up for today? And again, just as a reminder, we do go live here every Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern time for our weekly Career Accelerator Q&A to really help support you with practical guidance and lived experience to set you up for the most success and unlock higher levels of growth and impact in your career. So, always great having you guys here. Next Friday, we won't have a live as I am traveling, but we will resume back the following week. So, if there are any questions, just keep those top of mind or feel free to send me a DM on whichever platform you're following me. You could also go ahead and book a call. It's a free clarity call with me and my team. We'd love to speak with you to really take your career to that next level. You deserve it. And we want you to feel so confident in all of that. That's going to unlock those higher levels of growth for you. So you can actually book a call directly from my LinkedIn profile if you're following me over there. If you're joining us over on Instagram, feel free to just comment call or DM me call, and we can get that set up together too. Okay, I have one last question here from Vishal. Tips for before and during regulatory audits in an organization as a subject matter expert. Yeah, I mean, definitely. If you're having regulatory audits that are coming through, I remember those very well, and you're a subject matter expert in your domain, you want to be really on top of like your non-negotiables. A lot of that's getting your documents well sorted, having a proper filing of where you can find things, making sure if there's things that are being done in terms of your processes that they're all really cleaned up, properly in order. You could lean on also your finance department or your legal department because they will likely provide insights of how to have a very successful regulatory audit and anything that you should be focusing on before and during. I would again say here less is more. So you don't want to overly share for a regulatory audit. You want to focus on like just must haves and keep everything else really clean. And lean on your boss and even sometimes your boss's boss or the head of your department around some of their non-negotiables and having a well-run regulatory audit and not opening up any cans of worms, I should say. So hopefully that helps, but definitely lean into your organization because they'll provide some key insights around what matters most in those audits, especially if they're like an audit that's done regularly or not so regularly. That will probably vary the level of depth and due diligence that's required going into that particular audit. Yeah. All right. Great questions, guys. Well, I guess on that note, we will wrap up for today. And as a reminder, I always put the replay of our Career Accelerator Q&A over on my LinkedIn. So if you joined us late or you want to listen to it back, please feel free to check that out over on my LinkedIn page. If you're not already following me over on LinkedIn, please do. I love sharing really practical guidance there for you to benefit from. And same thing with Instagram. If you're not following me over there, I'd love to have you there to share regular content daily, practical guidance from a lot of lived experience of having been exactly where you are, being in the trenches and helping you feel most confident in all of that. Yes, and also thank you, Helen. I know Thanksgiving is coming up for a lot of our US folks as well. So I hope everyone is going to have a great Thanksgiving celebration as that comes up as well. I can't believe we're already middle of November. This is nuts. Time is flying. But please know that this is a really important moment of the year. Just because things are wrapping up or it feels like it is, there is still a lot of activity happening. We've seen it with our clients, 3 of them this week alone who have landed their new job offers and new opportunities, and a lot that are also solidifying their internal promotions and advancement goals. So there's a lot of magic that happens. You don't want to be turned on and off in your career. It's an always on thing. And I really appreciate you guys being here and sharing your questions. And I hope you found this helpful. Again, we will be just skipping next week and coming back the following week. So hopefully, we'll see some of you guys then. And on that note, I also wish everyone a wonderful weekend and thank you for joining today. All right.